I think number one is actually is what you said, Rania. It's a wake-up call. I think sometimes the big challenge for leaders is complacency. And complacency means you're doing things a particular way and you're growing the organization, you're growing the people, you're making a bit of a difference. Then all of a sudden there are less ideas. Or from your perspective, there's growth or business change, and you know what you knew when the organization was at a certain size, but you don't know what you know when the organization's at a bigger size. So all of a sudden, there's a little less innovation on your part. There's a little less getting things done. And we could drive more into this. We'll see what questions and answers, what questions anyway people are asking. But I think I'd also like to start the session off by just talking about what the heck leadership is, which of course most people on this call or listening to the podcast will say, yeah, we kind of know what that is. But just so that we're all using some of the same terminology, I'll give this one, which is partially from McKinsey, partially from Harvard Business Review, partially from the Oxford English Dictionary. My version of it is it's the behaviors that you have to help align the collective direction of each individual to execute the business's or the organization's strategy. That's what it is. So as a result of that definition, let me just point out what it isn't. It isn't you doing all the work. It's you actually activating all of those arms and legs within the organization and outside, for that matter, to execute the strategies, coming up with and driving that strategy when there's change, and it's to make it all happen. Now, I have to say, and I've been a CEO for most of my life. I sit on corporate boards, so I'm sort of looking on the other side. I've certainly done the not-for-profit as well as leadership, as well as on the board. And I have to say that being a leader isn't easy. And I think some of the dichotomies of being a leader are something we should also state right up front, which is this. You're responsible for the strategic long term, but you've also got short-term deadlines. You're empowered to run teams, but you want to make sure that there's alignment and standardization across. And of course, you're modeling, if you will, for other people. When we're talking about leaders, I will just quickly say that, on one hand, there's the CEO, the executive director, and that sort of specific role as a leader. But there's also leaders within the organization, the head of a business unit, or the head of a chapter of an association, or a person who's an operations manager, or partner within a larger firm, for example. All of these people might not be the chief executive officer, executive director, but they do have leadership responsibilities. So when I'm talking about leadership, I guess you can sort of look at it through both of those lenses. There's other dichotomies, if you're not the chief, you want to resolve it on your own. But on the other hand, when do you escalate? Do it yourself or delegate it to your team. Your own work, because you actually do have work yourself, or is it to make sure the team is actually getting their work done? Too much work, not enough work for everybody. You've got to manage up, whether it's to the board or to the leadership above you. You've got to manage across to your peers inside and actually outside the organization. You also have to manage down. So there's a boatload of stuff that makes the job of leadership actually a little bit of a challenge. And sometimes, people will say, this is the loneliest job there is, because sometimes you're not able to have those conversations with people internally about some of the difficult decisions you actually need to make. So, what makes a good leader? I'll just touch on a couple things and love to obviously open it for questions. I know Ronnie's got a bunch as well, but what makes a good leader? And if I could boil it down to maybe four concepts, is alignment, participation, celebration, and evaluation. And if I could just sort of think through and maybe speak a moment about each, alignment is, can we make sure that everybody is singing from the same song sheet, which speaks from the very beginning about, making sure you're recruiting people that's kind of are what you're looking for. Start with good raw material. But what kind of training are you offering them? How are you investing in your people? How do you make sure that as the business change, the strategy change, the market change, the priorities change, the dynamics, the structure changes, everybody's still on the same page, right? It doesn't happen by accident or by miracle. So training is pretty important, as is communication, both the formal internal communication that you have, the retreats, the emails, the all hands meetings, all of those kinds of things, the culture. And what kind of culture are you looking to build as well? Excuse me. We worked with hundreds of clients with vastly different cultures, all successful, some perhaps more successful than others, but that's a very important part of it. And all of this is what generates alignment. Participation is really, if I could talk about one thing, it would be behavioral modeling. So as a leader, people are watching you very carefully, and you're modeling in every single way how you want others to act, how you want others to make decisions, even sometimes how they dress, right? So the behavioral modeling is and the kind of participation that generates is actually really important. Celebration is the recognition of the individual. It's also recognition of achievement of goals at an organizational level. We had our best year ever. What are you going to do? You're just going to sort of forget about it, or are you going to reinforce it? Gee, the behaviors that happened all throughout the year are what provided, that resulted in that best year ever. Okay, or if somebody does something exceptional, okay, how are you going to recognize them? How are you going to let them know that, yeah, this is exactly right? And I want to distinguish between recognition and rewards. If you've got a salesperson, okay, they get rewarded based on how many contracts they sign or whether they met a quota, etc. That's rewards. Recognition is job well done. It's giving them space, making sure that they're looked at positively by their peers. Evaluation and accountability, I think that's pretty simple, but not just up and down. The board evaluates the chief, okay. The most senior person evaluates the next level down, and then the next level down, the next level down, etc. But also, how about the peers? Okay, how do we make sure that there's this peer accountability in not-for-profits, associations, in professional service firms, law firms, consulting firms, accounting firms? When you've got a number of partners, for example, it's not a simple thing to be able to say to a partner, listen, I'm holding you accountable. You wouldn't say it in those words, but there's mechanisms and specific ways to deal with and incentivize and provide positive feedback and accountability when everybody's a peer, or in a corporate sense where you've got a number of peers, and how do you do that as well?